think it all kind of naturally takes us on to the first race of Royal Ascot, which is the Queen Anne Stakes, in which you have Palace Pier at trading between 2 to 5 and 4 to 9 in most places. I mean, you're going to do well to find. You might still be able to find 1 to 2 in places, but you got to look hard to find that. What's your feeling? Obviously, it's 7 out of 8 races. Its only defeat was at Ascot and for the Champions Day. Very different conditions in that it was on soft, so not at all.
Yep, in the wet. He's a darn good horse. This race always bringing you back to 2012 when I helped out a Aussie tour group that came across, because that was the year Black Caviar came over, and of course all the Aussies are very pro, saying Black Caviar is better than Frankel. We're in a big hospitality thing down at the end of the grandstand, but still about a furlong from the line, and we're right at the point where Frankel said go and won by was it 11 or 14 lengths or something like that. He's just destroyed Celebration, who's an extremely good horse, and everyone's jaw just dropped. Oh, that was the ultimate wow moment. He just absolutely destroyed the field that day in the Queen Anne, and away he went. Palace Pier is potentially the best winner since then. I'm not expecting him to go out and do that, but he's supposed to be the best. Certainly, this distance, he's the best flat horse in training. He's darn good. Certainly, at least in Europe, these are prime conditions for him. His biggest 3 winning margins have been on good to firm going. None of these really hold a candle to him, to be honest. The rest of the field I see is quite even, but Palace Pier is.
And so then, when you're approaching a race like this, where
superstar.
I mean, you think 2 to 5 is fair value, effectively?
Potentially, it's not really my price to be sort of lumping on. But if anyone's there's a few sort of very very big ballsy sort of punters over the years that have loved odds on favourites. I'm not sure how many of these guys are familiar with. There's a New Zealand guy called Steel Balls. About 20 years ago. About 20 years ago, he was famous back in the All Blacks and some very long odds-on horses. But like most of those sort of punters, eventually end up doing his nuts. Yeah. There's another one over here called Harry Findlay. He's written a book. He's a bit of a name. And there was another called the Fireman back in the 70s in the betting rings of Australia as well. That puts just 6 figures on odds on shots and generally collect, but. Like I tell people in the old Betfair education days, if you're betting 105, backing things at 105, you need 19 out of 20 of them to win just to break even. Just to break even.
Wow,
that's a very hard thing to make profit on. But
so
it can be done if you think they're all 101 shots.
Before then, Frank and Sam get your opinion, but does that mean for a race like this, is it a stay away? Is it just you think or are you looking elsewhere for each way bets and?
No, probably there's 11 declared, so I think there's probably some each way value here. I think the rest of there's not a great deal between, and I certainly think there's a few marks against the ones at the front of that market. You have plenty of options here with our favourite markets or just standard each way at prices, and bookmakers love, particularly the first race of a carnival or festival, as they call it over here. They love throwing out the offers to basically lock you in for the day. So you'll probably get 4, possibly even 5 places with certain bookies. You might get a bit less in value in the price, but it's worth sort of looking around and taking the best offers you can on each way terms. But I shall pop it over to you guys and see what you come up with and anything else before I come back.
I'll give away my tactics already, which is in a race like this, crisis. Particularly on the opening race of Royal Ascot. I love nothing more than throwing Palace Pier into a couple of doubles. And so that's my general tactic, is that Palace Pier is just going to be the backbone of some other bets, which can go. There's been some disasters with this approach. Sometimes it just gives me an interest in a race in which I think the odds-on favorite is likely to win. Mm-hmm. So rather than look for value elsewhere, and I'm a bit like you, it's difficult to see. It's difficult for me to pick out one of the other horses and think I can get a solid bet there each way. That's my personal approach, but. Frank and Sam will be well aware of that particular tactic.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Having a long shot in the curtain raiser of the whole festival, because you can really start pretty badly in all of this. But Scott, just going back to your point about Frankel, I was actually working at Ladbrokes at the on the course, and on that day, and I remember just seeing it. The second Quealy said go, the response was instantaneous. It was so incredible to watch. But I took 10 grand bets, and they said it was the easiest £1,000 they've ever made, and it was the quickest £1,000 they've ever made. So they've set themselves up for the entire tournament. But it was great to watch, and it was great to see such an atmosphere around a horse. But it's pretty special to see that kind of thing. But I kind of agree with what you were saying. It's pretty odd seeing like a 4-9 shot, because you actually look at the field behind it, and it's interesting because you look at Palace Pier's Lockinge win, and no one's really run since then. In that one, like Lady Beauthorpe won such an incredible race in second. Lope Y Fernandez ran a pretty poor race in that one. So it's a bit awkward to look at Palace Pier's recent form and see what it's running against now. But I think you're looking at arguably Europe's top miler at the moment. And I think 4-9's a good bet. There's a slight risk about things like Order of Australia, because it's a little bit more seasoned than the rest, maybe. But for me, I think it's pretty difficult to look past Palace Pier. I think you're looking at one of Europe's best horses, and really an exciting horse. All the connections to Tory immediately after that Lockinge said that this was the target. So I think this is prepped, it's ready to go. And I think it's actually a pretty solid bet for the opener.
Frank, what's your play?
Yeah, I don't think it's a horse that you want to mess with. But with it being so short, and I don't really like either of the O'Brien horses that much, it does then give you some value down low for maybe a nice each way. The one that I kind of was interested in was Sir Busker at an each way. You can get him at like 25, 30 to 1. He has course and distance form at Ascot. He won Royal Hunt Cup, I think it was last year or the year before. I forget now, it's all of COVID. I forget that last year. But he also has decent form against Palace Pier. Albeit it was in Champions Day on soft ground, but he was only about a length or half a length behind Palace Pier in that race as well. Came back this year, was third to Oh This Is Us, who then went on to win that nice race in Epsom. So I think it's a decent each way. If you can get 30 to 1, that's a decent price for something that might sneak in at third. So other than that, though, I'm going to do what Eddie said probably, and maybe throw some doubles. But
what at a point with Sir Busker, all his best performance has been in the big open straight track. So Ascot, Newbury, Newmarket, New York. So he does love a big straight, and I've got him in there as potential. The one I like is actually the rank outsider at a bit of a price. Pogo, just a small each way. I think we're not going serious here. Ran third in the Royal Hunt Cup here last year at the higher end of the weights, but this is a big step up. It's been competitive in a few weaker group races. 31 lengths defeat in the lock-in is a concern, but the stable put it down him not liking the ground. But he's never been that dire before on rain back to track, so take it with a grain of salt. But if he'd run to his previous start rating, he'd have been about 4.5 length third. 6 to 1 each way. You're not taking much of that's that risk premium's in there at 66s. So I'll have a little bit on that. But I think the two big favourites of the day, Palace Pier and Batash, will probably be in some pretty lumpy doubles. I think bookies love to see a favourite go down on the first day at Cheltenham. Or this, I'm not sure you find many others to throw in there.
I'm looking forward to hearing Frank's talk about Batash. Actually, he's got a love affair with that horse.
I love the sounds of that double, Scott. I love the sounds of it.
And before we move on to the next race, then, just because you've brought it up, the Black Caviar Frankel debate, then, where do you stand?
Absolutely.
Yep. Frankel was the best thing I've ever seen. Black Caviar's done good. She was injured and laying based on the post, and it wasn't the best ride by Luke Nolan, which it's a shame because basically the lazy Pom seems to think that was the best of her, and that was nowhere near the best of her. But she wasn't as good as she was done good, and she's the best of that brigade. But Frankel was probably the best horse ever seen, certainly in the drug-free era. You can have that argument in the States when horses on, let's just say, I'm not sure Secretariat's blood would have passed
There's
Hear it here
some
first.
there's some clickbait for us there. We can get into a whole debate.